Hi, I'm Lori Jones, President and CEO of Avocet Communications and host of StrategyCast. Join me and my guests, innovators, disruptors, and visionaries, as we explore bold and brave marketing strategies that help you transform, scale, and grow your brand. Are you curious about cracking the code on global marketing? Then this episode of StrategyCast featuring Christina Liebman is for you. Christina is an industry veteran with 25 years spanning telecom to SaaS, and on the show, she shares how to successfully navigate international markets. From tailoring campaigns to local cultures and building strong regional partnerships to leveraging AI for smarter strategies, Christina delivers insights that matter. We'll explore ways to boost market entry, build memorable brands, and turn data into a competitive edge. If growth is on your radar, this episode is packed with ideas you'll want to put into action. And don't forget to check out the most recent issue of the StrategyCast newsletter on StrategyCast.com. Just like this episode is full of inspiration and a ton of ideas that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how. Let's jump in.
A competitive edge starts with strategy, and strategy starts with knowing how to develop one. StrategyCast is a leading marketing podcast that serves up strategic insights, trends, and tips to help separate your business from the pack. Tune in weekly as host Lori Jones interviews bold marketing leaders who have priceless wisdom and are willing to share. Each episode explores cutting-edge approaches that have proven instrumental in transforming brands into industry trailblazers.
Welcome to StrategyCast. I am thrilled to have Christina Liebman join the show today. We are going to get our hands dirty talking all about global strategy. I'm thrilled to have Christina join the show because she knows everything that you need to know about. So let's introduce Christina. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. It's exciting. I'm excited to be here.
I tell you, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. We've been talking about this for quite a while. And when we initially met one another and decided that this was going to be a great conversation to have, one thing that really interested me about you and your expertise was the true global strategy piece. We've not talked about it on the show in probably a couple of years. So I'm really, really thrilled to dive into that and talk about some of the work that you've done in that area. Before we get there, tell me a little bit more, and the audience, a little bit more about yourself and your journey.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm Christina Liebman. I've been doing marketing for about 25 years now for a multitude of industries, from telecom to SaaS to semiconductor to manufacturing. You name it, I've done it in one way, shape, or form. So I've been there. I've been through the trenches. I've failed fast, and I've pivoted, and I've come out the other end in most instances. So I'm excited to talk to you about my lessons learned and share my background and experience with you guys.
Well, I just love that. Most people think when they think global strategy, they think US, and then let's go to South America. Mm-hmm. Let's go to Europe. And as I was prepping for the show today, I don't think many of our listeners and viewers would know that Red Bull is not a U.S. company. Red Bull is actually Austrian. And they came to the U.S. So, kind of reverse. So it's interesting to think about, many of the brands that you and I have worked on, it's been bringing this brand, to Europe, to whatever it might be. But there are some reverse engineer brands out there, everyone, that have come to us as well. So I just thought that was a little interesting point of information there, because I didn't know it before I was studying for this.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But how when you are really defining a global brand strategy, how do you adapt the national brand's identity and messaging to the worldwide audience, but while maintaining its, the core essence of the brand?
Yeah, I think there's actually three pieces that I would recommend. As you mentioned, it's important to clarify kind of that core brand essence and, define what your why is. I mean, it's so important to, to define that and make sure that you stay true to that. I also feel like, you need to focus on the aspects of your brand identity that have universal relevance, such as the emotional benefits, whether it's trust, joy, innovation, rather than just the functional ones.
Right.
The second area I think is understanding cultural norms, making sure you take time to research the local markets and understand kind of cultural sensitivities. And then the third is to just maintain visual consistency with flexibility. So you want to make sure that wherever your brand is throughout the world, that there's visual consistency, that it looks like your organization, that it looks like your brand. It follows like elements like color schemes, fonts, and you're reinforcing your brand recognition across all different markets.
Have you ever run into a scenario where a brand, had to change up its brand in the US first in order to go global because it was not, the colors may have been a total mismatch for South America or France. And they, in order to really get that strategy right out of the chute, they needed to kind of clean things up here first?
Not on the US side, but I've done it on the flip side where I've worked for an organization that had a huge market in Asia, and we had to shift up our color palette because it was primarily red. And
Yep.
that was very offensive over there, which I learned the hard way. And it was, like figuring out what kind of colors were going to be appropriate for that culture, and making sure that we weren't offending anybody by going to market with the wrong logo, with the wrong color scheme, with the wrong identity, if you will.
Well, you bring up so many good points there because I think quite often people think, okay, it's just the message that we have
Mhm.
to take a look at. But it's far more than that. And it becomes very, very important to make sure that it can be successful all around. Of the three elements that you just shared with us, what do you feel is probably the most difficult to get right in order to be successful globally?
Um, the three elements that I originally called out, or just with the
Yeah.
logo. Okay. I feel like understanding the cultural nuances. I
Yeah.
think we as Americans just assume that everybody interacts and behaves the way that we do, but when we're interacting with the different cultures, there's areas of our behaviors or our approaches that can be seen as aggressive, or just not accepted in other cultures. So it's understanding kind of how you're being perceived in different markets, and making sure that you're addressing those cultural norms.
I love that. And I think we even run into that if you think about it, even with a lot of US brands and the Spanish speaking audiences,
Mhm.
and how the dialects just change from region to region, or even within a state, how dialects can change. So I think that sort of thing is very, very important to consider as well. Um, Now, I would imagine most companies that are deploying this on a big level are also deploying an incredible amount of market research in advance to make sure that they totally set all of this up for success. How do you leverage um, the market research that you've deployed or developed in order to be successful with go-to-market strategies once you're in market?
So I think it's really important to establish, like I said, a clear brand architecture that defines how the sub brands or the products fit under that global brand umbrella. And then you want to make sure that, the campaigns or the programs that you are running wherever they are in the world, they don't dilute the parent brand's image. And you also want to create kind of a framework for brand governance, excuse me, to maintain consistency in messaging and identity. And then I also think it's important to allow local markets the flexibility to adapt within kind of your high level guidelines.
You bring up a really interesting point there. How long do you feel a brand needs in order to really feel the market penetration in a new market? Is it similar to the US? I mean, 3 to 5 years based on budget? Or do you think with some recognition that can speed up as you expand globally?
Yeah, I think it can speed up as you expand globally. And what I also think is interesting is I've participated in so many acquisitions. So sometimes you acquire a company that has a stronger brand foundation or a brand identity in a specific region. And
Uh,
so then you're trying to kind of partner with that brand to build that brand equity as kind of a joint entity. So, for example, we purchased companies in Latin America where we weren't as widely known, but we had to partner with that brand and create kind of a transition brand approach so that we could continue to kind of take some of that brand equity and build the parent brand's equity back so that it was more recognized within that particular area, also within Asia and throughout Europe. So it's interesting because you participate in these acquisitions, but then sometimes you're the underdog and you come in and you're trying to build credibility in spaces where you're not as widely known.
And I think in those situations, you might even want to consider, okay, in South America, do we want to be a house of brands?
Mm-hmm.
Or do we want to be a branded house?
For
And
sure.
or a hybrid.
Yeah.
Over time as well, you might say, okay, we're going to be a house of brands for 18, 24, 36 months. And then as the brand evolves in time, we can begin to strengthen the original brand position.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and timing is such a guess in those situations. We had the reverse happen with us as well, where we had an outside brand coming into the US and acquiring, and the brand did not really think about it that way. And we came in and really had to educate them on some of the science behind timing house of brands, branded house. And we decided to do a hybrid over time with them, just to make sure that the audience felt comfortable with the change and that we had buy-in with the new audience as well.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great strategy.
There is a lot of guesswork in it. But I think with a lot of case studies, and you certainly have a lot of them, a lot of case history, case studies, and different kinds of frameworks that exist, that, you get a whole room of marketers and salespeople and rev ops together, you can definitely solve these issues with a lot of people working together.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How do you, one thing that we get quite often is social media.
Yep.
So, are you finding that independent channels by country are the best way to go, or you know, how should company X approach its social media strategy in a new market?
So I'm a big proponent of the omni-channel approach. You really think that you need to target your potential customers across multiple mediums with the same message. Kind of meet them where they are to ensure your messages are get to them and they're consistent. I've used a variety of different platforms, and it's interesting, as you expand more globally, how you how you leverage WeChat, Alibaba, Zing, Google, Bing, and a multitude of social sites, and then how you actually track your exposure and your results and your campaign activity. It's you basically want to create that centralized dashboard that shows the activity that you're seeing, so you can figure out what channels are working the best, to get to your kind of intended audience, particularly if you have limited budgets and limited funds to spend in that area. I know that, when we first started using WeChat, it was, a lot of video, and that's just how they wanted to consume content in that area. We didn't have a lot of video, so we had to create kind of vignettes and, small kind of snackable content pieces that we could put into that platform that we hadn't leveraged here in the United States. So it was a learning experience. And then as we kind of gauged the interactivity that we were seeing, then we realized that more of that content was needed for that particular market.
In a lot of the Asian countries in particular, when we've had global, not really an expansion, but just global PR initiatives, we've always hired localized
Mhm.
PR firms,
Yeah.
markets, especially the Asian markets. Do you find that you're hiring the creative resources in the local market as well, with the snackable content, with the video?
Yeah, I think I've had teams that fortunately I've had team members that have been in local markets that have helped. I feel like when I try to do it on my own, I don't know what I don't know. So I'm over there creating this content and they're like, yeah, this makes no sense. We don't understand your message. We don't understand what you're trying to say. So I've been burned on that a few times and kind of realized that I either need the local resources or the local agencies to help me create the content that resonates with that audience based on kind of my intended message or the story that I'm trying to tell.
Yeah, I love that. What do you think is the most difficult social channel to work with globally?
I would say, God, that's a good question. I mean, I would say WeChat probably. Yeah. Just
Just because.
because, yeah, there's so much, it's just so much out there. Like, how do you stand out from everything that's coming across that channel? And how do you actually, continue to promote your brand based on everything that they're consuming on a regular basis?
How are, this is just really curiosity at this stage. How are their analytics, like some of these, global tools versus, we get so spoiled with the analytics that we have with the Meta products for.
Yeah. I think they're pretty comparable. I mean, you can definitely dig in and get a lot of detail on, on usage, kind of, how many times your content is shared, how people are consuming it, what they're doing with it, whether they're liking it or not. So it's pretty comparable.
Okay, that's good to know. I mean, that insight becomes really important.
Sure.
What about media buying? And some of the analytics, for digitally that you really need to be aware of when it comes to making sure that you've got a clean buy.
Yeah, I've definitely leveraged agencies to help with that, just to make sure that, I'm getting the biggest bang for my buck and making sure that I'm spending appropriately, because it's just too difficult to try to kind of figure it out on your own, especially when you work with them and say, I want to launch this product. This is my ideal ICP. This is who I'm trying to target. They can kind of help narrow down the field, because you definitely want to take more of a targeted approach in those types of channels as opposed to kind of a spray and pray type of approach, because you want to make sure you're getting your information in front of the people who are actually going to do something with it.
Well, and we have some incredible publishers right here in the United States that
Um,
are really doing a great job with, clean um, delivery of
uh,
advertising that is not biased and it's not just to, clickbait or anything like that to try to get the numbers up. So I think we've come a long way with the authenticity of a clean buy as well versus something that, isn't getting to the audience that you are supposed to be buying.
that's great. Yeah.
I mean, we've leveraged that, directly, direct with publishers quite often as well. Um, the other, GDPR is such a big deal here in the
Yeah.
United States, and I think we've got another one, CIPA, that's really just coming to light right now with the state of California. I mean, it's never ending. It feels like. What advice do you have for our audience regarding how they can navigate the regulatory and legal side of, you know, marketing in a foreign, what is a foreign market?
Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of track kind of market reception, use local insights, customer feedback, and data analytics to kind of see how well the brand is being perceived, and then making adjustments if needed. And then understanding kind of what works and what doesn't helps in refining the strategy for different locations. It iterative localization, like test localized versions of campaigns and products in select markets before you do a full rollout, and just, make sure that, you're hitting the mark and that your campaign is kind of, delivering the results you want before you go out with like a full-fledged program.
Yeah. What is one of the biggest surprises you've had as a global marketer regarding anything that we've just talked about?
I think for me, it was an eye-opening experience, because I was working for a large global company and had this most amazing campaign that was performing so well in North America, and I was ready to kind of scale it globally. I really took the time to make sure it was like it had firing on all cylinders in North America. And then I took that campaign and launched it into Europe and Asia and watched it like flop. Like, and I was like, what happened? And I was just like, I can't believe this has happened to me, just because it was performing so well in North America. So, you learn a valuable lesson knowing that you just can't take a cookie cutter campaign that works well in North America and launch it into different cultures and different markets and assume it's going to perform the same way.
And I would imagine that's where like a local agency become or collaboration partnerships on some level become paramount for being successful in that market.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And having local teams on the ground that can, read the content, look at your creative, making sure it will resonate with the intended culture that you're trying to target.
Yeah. What do you think is one of the most difficult things in finding the right partner globally?
I think you've got to make sure that you find a partner that, understands your value proposition, what you're trying to do and how you're trying to grow, and then understands kind of what your ideal customer profile looks like and can help you partner on finding the prospects that you're trying to target.
Yeah. I think product, it's something that we haven't talked about yet.
Yep.
And product differences become really important, like just creating that same experience that might be very successful here and asking yourself, how do we create that globally? Victoria's Secret, there's great case study out about really how they expanded globally.
Uh-huh.
And they make sure, even though they've got all sorts of production across across the world, that the look, the feel is exactly the same, no matter where you are in the world purchasing the clothing. The sizes, the colors, the styles are all the same. And again, while the manufacturing comes from around the world, they primarily rely on an export model of opening new stores in smaller locations like malls and airports as a point of entry to ultimately move to a larger storefront. Those are really, really unique considerations when it comes to establishing market penetration and the best, most cost-effective way to do it as well.
Yep. Yep. I would agree. Yeah. And I know that McDonald's has done a lot of that as well. Just kind of how do they package up, their Big Mac here so it resonates with like different cultures and change the name and change the packaging, even though it's, similar, but they want to make sure that they're adhering to kind of the culture and norms of where they're trying to go.
Yeah, and some specialty products as well. My family's from Ireland. They live in Ireland, and we go back to Ireland quite often.
Mhm.
And there recently, in our last vacation, a McDonald's had opened up in Derry, Ireland,
Uh-huh.
and it was where everyone went for Sunday dinner. And here, I mean, just the mindset of finally having a McDonald's in the market was such a gift to, and fast food in general, but
Sure.
gift to the people there. Literally, get dressed up to go to McDonald's on a Sunday. And they do have some differences,
Uh-huh.
of course, with product, just based on the localization of the market. But even having those insights to know that it was going to be such a great draw that, kind of like Chick-fil-A's are here in the United States or In-N-Out, when an In-N-Out
Oh
opens and
yeah.
goes so long. That, I mean, the dining rooms in Northern Ireland for McDonald's are 5 times the size they are here in the United States, and the line is just, 20 cars, 3-lane deep.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, but totally makes sense. It's something new.
Yeah, exactly. What about measuring ROI and really success? What advice do you have for our listeners regarding that?
So I think it's important that you have kind of a combination of both qualitative and quantitative metrics. Some of my favorite metrics for global programs include, global sales growth, market penetration, the customer acquisition cost, share of voice, customer lifetime value, the campaign performance by market, and cultural reference score. I think those are really good kind of global metrics to kind of hang your hat on. And then, if you're trying to kind of hone in on region specific messages, you can add those as a secondary layer.
Yeah, those are some great insights there. Share of voice, I think, is always interesting, right?
Mhm.
Seemingly, not seemingly, typically share of voice grows, over time,
Yeah.
but some great market entrants and some unicorn sort of approaches that you can create, you can achieve some of those outcomes more quickly. What advice do you have for our audience regarding how you take a look at all that and really understand what matters the most, which is revenue generation?
Yeah, that's why I think the sales growth numbers, the pipeline numbers, and how the campaigns are performing, the downloads, the interactivities that you're seeing. I mean, that is really important. But then the share of voice is almost like your brand credibility, your thought leadership, how people are talking about you in, the ecosphere and what they're saying about you. So it's really important to keep that top of mind as well, while you're also focusing on the revenue components.
I love that. So as brands are considering expansion globally, what are some of the emerging trends that you see shaping their global expansion strategies?
Gosh, this is an interesting question. I think that a lot's going to be focused on hyper-personalized marketing. We now have the ability to tailor like personalized product recommendations, content, and marketing experiences based on user preferences. A lot is happening with influencer partnerships. Influencer becoming kind of key to global marketing strategies, and brands are collaborating with local influencers to drive awareness and to reach kind of niche audiences. And I think the last one would be like sustainability and purpose-driven marketing. Consumers really want to seek brands that prioritize sustainability, ethical practices, and social responsibility. That seems to be just kind of the way that the world is headed. And brands that are focusing, that align with environmental goals and reducing carbon footprints and eco-friendly packaging and fair labor practices, I think are also really important.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a choice in the EU with a lot of that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What you have to be go into the market with that in mind, or achieving that. And interestingly, Avocet just became EcoVadis certified, which is an international certification for sustainability. We achieved a bronze recognition, which out of the chute is very difficult. Most people aren't certified until their second or third at bat with the organization. So we're absolutely thrilled, but we did it specifically because we knew that sustainability, leadership, ethics, and of course, human rights are a topic that is very, very important to brands globally. And, it becomes an area for us to be able to say, okay, it's important to us as well, and we're ready for you. So those sort of certifications, I think, become very, very important considerations when going, not just an ISO cert or something like that, but the sustainability side of it becomes very important when you want to expand, let alone here. We got Colorado certified and out certified as well. So we hit the, we're going. So we're excited.
Well, that's awesome. That's quite an accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you. I am excited about it. Last question. How do you see AI affecting these strategies, and how can brands use it to really benefit themselves?
Yeah, AI is my new kind of, I don't know, my new kind of hobby, I think, if you will, if I can say that. It's basically transforming how marketers, target, engage, and convert customers globally. I mean, AI-powered tools can analyze vast amounts of consumer data to predict trends, automate content creation, optimize ad spend, and kind of drive customer engagement. So the more that you can leverage AI as a partner to help you figure out what you don't know and to help you come up with new ideas and new approaches, I think the stronger of a marketer you can actually become. And it's not like it's doing the work, it's just helping you think differently and helping you see things from a different perspective. So I'm excited to kind of see where AI takes us. I feel like every day there's something new that's out there that you've got to test and try and learn and keep up to date with. But it's definitely an interesting time.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Final words for our audience today regarding their approach to global strategy.
I think my final words would be that, it's really important to test. It's really important to learn. It's important to kind of try new things. And if it doesn't work the way that you thought, you've got to be willing to pivot. You've got to be willing to kind of scrap that and move into a different direction. That's why I feel like taking, subset smaller markets, testing, making sure you validated your assumptions before you go out there with like a huge campaign is really helpful because like I said previously, we don't know what we don't know. So we've got to continuously figure out kind of what platforms, what programs, what content, what messaging, like what's going to work, what's going to move the needle and drive the results the business is looking for. And then once you find that recipe, continue on that path until it doesn't work anymore, and then figure out a different way how you want to pivot and how you want to kind of go into a different direction. There's a lot out there.
There really is. I mean, so many things to consider. And this was really kind of like a question fire sort of session today, because there are so many things to consider. But at least listeners and viewers, you've got like a good list of, a checklist now of things to consider, some tales, from the dark side as well, on things you should do and not do along the way. Christina, what is the best way for our audience to get in contact with you?
You guys can find me on LinkedIn under Christina Liebman. I'm happy to connect and share any additional insights, thoughts with you. I love to talk marketing. So if you want to, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to have a further conversation with any of you.
Well, I appreciate that. And if you'd like to go ahead and get a hold of me too, you can email me at Lori, Lori, at StrategyCast.com. And don't forget to visit StrategyCast.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter as well. Christina, thank you so much for your appearance on StrategyCast.
Thank you, Lori. It was great to be here.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We hope your strategic brains are spinning with new ideas and bold inspiration that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.